Hello, I'm Dr. Bittiker. Today I'm going to give a short talk in a video presentation here on the Paleo Diet. If you've listened to my radio program or you've attended any of my lectures, you've heard me talk about the Paleo Diet a lot. Paleo is short for Paleolithic, and it is a diet that I've used on my patients for many, many years, and it's been quite successful. When we use the word diet, many times people get confused. They believe that it's just for weight loss. It does work quite well for that, but it's much more than that. It's actually an evolutionary diet. It's the diet that we should have been eating all along. The basic theory of the paleo diet, or short for Paleolithic diet, is that just like certain animals have evolved to eat certain foods, an example would be a carnivore is an animal that's designed to eat other animals, like a tiger. And a herbivore is designed to eat plants, like a cow or a horse. And then you've got omnivores in the middle, which can eat some of both. Well, we humans seem to fall in this category here. Where the confusion comes in is that we don't recognize the fact that we have evolved to eat certain foods just like other animals have eaten. And that's where we can get into a lot of trouble. Now, the paleo diet can do some pretty amazing things. For instance, I myself lost about 50 or 60 pounds on that diet, and I've kept it off. I'm also the only person in my family who ever made it past the age of 50 without being diabetic. I take no medications, and I attribute it to the fact that I follow this diet, or at least pretty close to it, for a long time. Also, I've seen this diet pretty much make things like psoriasis go away. Irritable bowel syndrome, very common ailment of the modern day age, is almost always attributable to eating some types of foods that you basically weren't designed to eat. Rheumatoid arthritic patients usually do very well on this. There's even research that shows that this type of a diet either stops or reverses MS. And I can keep going on and on and on, or report to you the fact that people that live, in other words, hunter-gatherers, the people that live on a paleo diet, cancer and heart disease and a lot of other degenerative diseases are unknown among these people. And this is well researched. Heart of the arteries, unknown among these people. Well, I'll get into more detail what it is. Now, as we mentioned earlier, certain animals are designed to eat certain foods. And if you feed them other foods, they get sick. Well, we humans are the same way too. I don't know why you would think we would be different. Let me give you some kind of extreme examples. Let's say you took a carnivore. Let's say you took a tiger and you put it in this cage and you had water in there and you threw in a couple bales of hay and you come back in a month. What are you going to find? You're going to find a dead tiger. Why? Tigers can't eat hay, even though it's got all the water the tiger may want, can't eat hay. They'll die. On the other hand, let's take it the other way. Let's say you take a horse or a cow, you put them in the same enclosure with water, and you put in some sheep, or you throw in some steaks. Well, what's going to happen? You come back a month later, you're going to have a dead horse or a cow, because they cannot live on meats and other things that a tiger could easily live on, and vice versa. If you want to kill a tiger, feed it corn. If you want to kill a horse, feed it meat. They're just not meant to do it. A tiger has very sharp teeth, very acidic saliva and stomach, very small stomach, small intestinal tract. It digests its foods completely differently. It's built to function differently. Whereas the cow or the horse, they chew their food, they grind it away. Their teeth are very flat. Their stomach is much more alkaline. They have 4 stomachs. Reindeer have 7 stomachs. In other words, they use a completely different process to digest their foods. Then you got the ones in between. That would be us humans. Another animal that would fall in this range might be the bear. Is that the foods that a bear eats pretty much are very similar to what humans eat in the wild. And when we deviate from this, this is when we get into trouble. So with humans, what do? Well, because of civilization, we have developed the way of fooling ourselves. We eat foods that we should not be eating. They are grains, beans, dairy, sugar, and salt. Now you wonder, why do I pick on these? Because I just picked on your main foods. And you see all these commercials that tell you that this is the way to go. Well, if you look at the evolution of humans, and then the creatures or animals or whatever you want to call them that preceded us in the evolutionary tree, going all the way back to lemurs 65 million years ago, which by the way are genetically about 93% similar to us. So the truth of the matter is, even if you look at a gorilla or an ape or a chimpanzee, genetically, they're probably about 96% identical to us. So they digest their food pretty much like we do. And so we might learn a lot from that. So the point being here is that if you eat foods that are not normal for you, you're going to have a problem. Now, you say, well, what's wrong with wheat? Well, I'll give you an example. Have you ever heard of celiac disease? Celiac disease is an extreme allergy to wheat gluten. Gluten is the protein that's in wheat that holds it together, and might add it's in a lot of other grains. And there are some people that have celiac disease so severely they can even die from it. It can result in extreme irritable bowel syndrome, gas, bloating, even bleeding of the colon, even in some cases resulting in infection or death in extreme cases. Most people have the lighter version of it. They're just irritated by that. When they eat foods that have gluten in it, they get bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, and a whole bunch of other symptoms, I might add, which might include joint aches and pains, irregular heartbeat, anxiety attacks. All these things can be related to eating foods that you're sensitive to, eating foods that you're really not designed to eat. So celiac disease is a classic example. But celiac disease in its obvious form is only probably maybe in 5% of the population. There's probably another 50% of the population that has significant wheat sensitivities, but not so severe. And it'll show up in you in a different way. You eat wheat, you get a rash. You eat something that has wheat in it and you get sleepy. You eat a pasta meal and you get sleepy a couple hours later. Or you may notice that after a meal high in carbohydrates that come from wheat, you have an accelerated pulse or you get a headache. There's a whole bunch of subtle symptoms that this can cause. So the reason is you're eating something your body was not genetically evolved to handle. Now there's a lot of genetic variability here. Some people can handle wheat pretty much no problem. Others have a severe problem. You see this with other foods. Personally, I can drink a glass of milk and it does not bother me. I know some people, they drink a glass of milk, they become very ill. So that's the biochemical individuality and the variable genetics from person to person. So what is it that in these foods that you should not be eating? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's take the grains. What is it in there that bothers you? It can bother you. Well, we have the glutens and the lectins. These are proteins that you could be very allergic to. Secondly, you have phytates. These are naturally occurring chemicals in there that inhibit mineral absorption. And then you have some of the estrogen-mimicking compounds that are in there also. So that's why you shouldn't be eating it. And secondly, or thirdly, the carbohydrates. You know, a starch molecule that you would find in a potato or in grain is basically nothing but sugar molecules stuck together. So when you have your, cream of wheat in the morning with maple syrup on it, you might as well just be drinking straight maple syrup. It's about the same effect on your bloodstream and on your blood fats. And if you don't believe me, you should see the test done like I've seen. So don't kid yourself. Carbohydrates, which is where the grains come from, are a major problem. Remember, if you want to make a cow gain weight, what do you give them? Well, you don't give them meat. They can't eat it. You give them grain. So think about that. Overconsumption of grain is one of the things that causes a lot of problems. Interestingly enough, scientists have found out that when they study ancient civilizations, they can tell when a society switches from a hunter-gatherer society, that's one where they don't grow any foods, they're out there catching their lunch and their breakfast and picking plants out of the ground, but they don't really grow anything. When they switch over to an agrarian society, they can tell when it happens. You know why? Well, the average height of the individuals drops about 6 inches. They start to see arthritis in the bones, arteriosclerosis in the bones. They start to see obesity for instance, in Egyptian mummies, a lot of them were very fat, and a lot of them had severe cavities. You don't see that in hunter-gatherers. So it's grains. Beans, same thing. Beans have things in them that can cause a lot of problems. First of all, there's oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharides are what give you the gas. Also, there are phytates in there that inhibit mineral absorption quite severely, I might add. You can induce mineral deficiencies in people by having them eat excessive amounts of beans. Also, there are hormone disruptors and hormone mimickers in beans. Particularly soy is very high in estrogen mimicking compounds. I can tell you that if you are a woman and you have a history of breast cancer runs in your family, particularly if you've had the genetic test done for the oncogene sensitivity to estrogen, you should stay away from soy. No soy shakes for you, no tofuti, no tofurkey, or whatever they got out there. That's not, you should stay away from that, and even other beans, because they do have estrogen mimicking compounds in them that can throw it off. This was found in animal studies way back in the 30s and 40s. It transmits through to humans. Another thing with beans in particular is soy. You know how many cases of hypothyroidism I have basically, I wouldn't say cured. All I did was look at somebody way over consuming soy because somebody told them to drink a soy shake 3 times a day and for some reason make their skin look nice. Well, when I got them off of that, their thyroid normalized, because soy can be very goitrogenic is the term. It can deactivate your thyroid. So if you have hypothyroidism, or if you're sluggish or tired or run down, or you're cold all the time, you might want to look at your bean consumption, particularly soybean consumption. There are things in there that can cause a problem. Now again, people wonder, well, why is it that everybody around the world seems to eat this and thrive? Well, you notice that with grains, you don't eat grains like a cow does. You don't eat beans like a cow does. You can let a cow out into a cornfield or a wheat field or a bean field, and they'll just eat it raw, and they can digest it raw. They produce a lot of gas. Yeah. Well, you know what would happen if I stripped you naked and let you out into a field of wheat or corn or soy and said, go ahead, eat it, and water? Do you vegetarians out there really think you could do that? Well, don't try it. You will die if you try it.